Hey guys, what's up? It's Alec Torelli, and we are here for a special episode of The Hand of the Day outside the Wynn Macau, where I am here joined by James, fellow poker player. James, tell us about yourself.
Sure. My name is James, and I've been watching Alec's video for 2 years, and I'm lucky enough to run into Alec Torelli in Macau.
Small world.
Yeah.
So he's going to tell us about a hand he played at the 50-100 game
Yes.
at the Wynn, right?
Yes.
Awesome. So tell us the hand.
Okay. So I opened like 300 from low jack with king 10 suited. I think it's king 10 clubs, and folded to big blind. He called, and the flop came king 10 fly with the spade. So he checked. I decided to check back because I have king top two pair. I try to trap there.
Let's talk about the check on the flop.
Yeah.
So you're checking back because you want to have strong hands to be able to call bets on the turn with, right?
Yeah, somewhat. And I feel like also when I have the king and 10 there, it seems like it's very hard for big blind to have a hand that can call 3 streets.
Right, because you have blockers against his value range.
Correct.
His value hands.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I'm with you on this one. I get where you're trying to go with checking the flop in order to be balanced and have hands where you could call a bet with on the turn in the river.
Sure.
But I think a better way to construct that range is to choose hands that can't get 3 streets of value, but that are still strong enough to call a bet with on the turn in the river.
I see.
So can you think of an example?
I don't know, maybe aces.
Aces, aces you could probably get 3 streets of value, and aces you don't block any kings.
Yeah.
So it's more likely your opponent has a king if you have aces.
Yeah.
Maybe a hand like king jack,
I see.
where you can't get 3 streets of value because there's not many worse hands your opponent's going to call a bet on the flop, turn, and river, but your hand is still plenty strong if you both check the flop to call a bet with on the turn in the river.
I see.
So you can still construct a balanced range, which is very important in poker, especially against good players like the one you were playing against in 2019. But you can do it with hands that are a little bit worse, and then you can save hands like king 10 to get 3 streets of value from something like king queen, or maybe a worse 2 pair like king 4 or something like that.
Yes, I see. So you're saying like king 10 is just too strong to check back, and it's kind of a waste to choose that hand in our checking range.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to do some of the time, but I don't want to throw it out there that people should be like default checking the nuts on the flop.
Yeah, totally.
Like maybe you can make a bigger case for a set of kings. I like checking more with kings.
I see.
Why? Because of course there's one less king that your opponent can have.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit better in that spot to choose as that hand. There also, you got to also consider king 10-4 is a different texture than king 7 deuce. There's a lot of hands that your opponent can call a bet with that you want to charge to draw, like queen 9, ace jack, maybe ace queen, maybe jack 9. All are going to call bets on the flop, so you want to charge those hands on a specific that texture of a king 10 board. Make sense?
Totally, yeah.
So what happened on the turn?
So the turn was like 3 of spades, so it brings like the flush draw. The spade draw. So villain bets like 500.
Pretty big bet, 500 into 650. Yep, encouraging.
So I decided to raise to 2,000 since it brings a lot of draws, and I want to charge those draws.
So let me stop you for a second here. We talked about why you're not going to check king 10 on the flop, because you want to get value from your hand right away. But this hand isn't even in your plan, because your plan was just to have a hand strong enough to call down with, then the turn comes a blank and you raise anyway, which gives more credence to my point of why I think we should be choosing hands that are not strong enough to raise the turn, that are strong enough to call, like king jack. Make more sense now?
Yeah, make sense, yes.
So we decide to raise the turn to 2,000.
Correct.
What happens then?
He called out of position.
Pretty standard.
Yeah, pretty standard. And the river is 2 of spade, so it brings the flush and some wheel draws.
Yes.
And then he checked. I bet 4,000, so that's more like pot size bet.
Yeah, I actually like this bet because it sort of protects your range. You can still have a flush here when you bet. So you don't want to bet something like 1,200 and then have yourself in a leveling war where you trick your opponent into maybe thinking you're weak, and then he check raises and bluffs you. This is a bet size where your opponent would have to have massive balls of steel to bluff here on a check raise. And so I think, it's a strong, solid bet where he still has to be worried that you have a flush. But at the same time, you put a king in a really tough spot, and there's plenty of value to be had from your hand. Obviously, he can call you with a king. You did check back the flop. You make your range look weak. So I think this is a great bet. Very good bet sizing.
Now it's a bad news. The guy check raise shoving 11,000, and I'm in a tough spot.
Yeah, so before we get into the results and the analysis, I'd like you guys to stop and take a second and be honest with yourself and think about what would you do in James's spot. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in a comment below. Would you A, fold, or B, call, and let me know why. And try and be objective by writing a comment with something that you would say before you hear the results of this hand. So this is a really tough spot.
Yeah.
But I think that we have to go back to our bet sizing on the river.
Yeah, totally.
If we bet something like 1200, I would be much more inclined to call a big check raise because of that leveling war.
Yeah.
You don't know if your opponent thinks that you're betting thin value, or maybe you just have air and you're trying to buy the pot. I think a smaller bet makes it more likely our opponent might bluff us.
Yeah.
When we choose a big bet here, like 4,000, he's got to be, God-fearing that we have a flush.
Totally.
We check the flop, we raise the turn when the spade come, we bet when the spade come. We're kind of representing a flush.
Yeah.
So our hand is almost over-repped our hand. The other side of the coin is that, we do have flushes here on the river.
Yeah.
So folding king 10 is not exploitable because I think that we're going to have enough flushes that we can call the river with our flushes and fold king 10.
Yeah.
And so I also don't think that generally people are bluffing here that often. I think it's a spot where one question I always implore the audience to think about is ask yourself, what would you do if you were the villain in the hand?
Yeah.
Like, what hands would you be raising with on the river? Would you ever bluff there? You're probably not going to be bluffing there that often. Certainly not often enough to call 7,000 to win 20. So I think, all in all, I would end up folding here in this spot. I would hate it, and I can't blame someone for calling in real time because it's easy to sit here in retrospect like we do, the rock stars, and analyze the hand.
But I totally agree with you guys.
But yeah, so what ended up happening?
So I called, and he showed us the bad news. So he has king 9 suited.
So that's it for the hand of the day, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts in a comment below. Subscribe to this channel for more awesome content coming your way. Let James know. Be nice to James, guys. James is a legend for being on the show, putting himself out there, being vulnerable to being on the channel. So please be nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Sure.
See you guys next time on the hand of the day.